So it's Wednesday the 15th of July at about 11:30, and I'm sitting here we're outside having a tea, and we're about 10 miles away from Woolwickham on the North Devon coast, and a very kind and generous young lady called Elena from Romania has agreed to give us a little account of how she came to live here in England from Romania, what made her move from Romania to here, and then of course how she's coped with this crisis and what impact it's made on her life. And also, if I might ask you to share with us any insights that you have been given as to the nature of the crisis, where it's come from, where it's going, but personal ones about how you've coped with the crisis, especially as I've heard that you were living with someone in a very vulnerable category. Your partner is in a vulnerable category. So I'll pass over to Elena and let her begin her story.
Yeah, okay. Well, my name is Elena. I'm Romanian. I'm 28 years old, and I moved here in 2016 to live with my partner. We met a year before, in 2015, in London, where I've been a tourist, and he was sitting in the hotel I sat. So basically, we started a friendship relationship. We started to talk on the phone and obviously on Facebook, and he invited me here because he's from Devon. He's local because he likes the ocean and all that, and I've never seen the ocean, so just for curiosity I came here a few times. We got closer and closer, and 1 year after I decided to move here. It was a bit difficult because my English wasn't that good, so I didn't really know exactly how it's going to be. It was quite a risky move from me. But I found this job. It's not exactly what I would like to do for my entire life, but
what is the work you do?
here I'm a senior waitress in the restaurant, and obviously I do help here and there wherever they need me. I'm doing at the moment an NVQ course in management, so we shall see. Maybe in a few, but I don't know. I'm not really sure at the moment. This crisis, as I'm going to speak later on, kind of opened my eyes a little bit about what I would like to do with my life and stuff.
Well, tell us a little bit about that now that you've mentioned the opening of your eyes.
Right. I've been to a military college in Romania for 4 years. It was quite stressful for me. I didn't really like it, so I decided to go in a different area. So I studied literature for a while, French literature, and straight after that I found a job actually in a French company. It had nothing to do with the fact that I studied literature. It was just a sourcing company, so I was doing their work contracts and stuff like that. I came here, and obviously I started doing this job, and I got a bit confused again with what I would like to do. And when all this crisis started, I found myself in a very weird position. Actually, I was because we had so much time off on our hands, and I really didn't know what to do with my life. So I tried to binge a few movies, a few TV shows. I tried a bit of yoga. I tried a bit of Pilates, and I tried to read a bit. And after a while, I kind of had a revelation one day. I was just thinking, if I wouldn't be paid, what would I would like to do? What would be my dream job, and what can I do? And I think I would like to work with people. I think I would like to help people, to counsel people, and I think this is where I'm gonna go. And maybe at the end of this crisis, I don't know when that is gonna happen, when things are gonna get better, or I think I would like to go back to school and study psychology, and that was kind of like my revelation. So I think I'll go in that area as soon as all this calms down a bit.
And so in terms of psychology and emotions, did you learn anything from this 3-month period that made you feel that you had something to give to other people to help them to overcome stress, anxiety, panic, fear? Is that the kind of insight that you got?
I think that I realized in this time that how much we need each other, actually, and how important it was to just communicate and just to see people and just to care in general. Because obviously I've lived with my partner for for 4 months non-stop, and he got a letter right from the beginning of this thing that he needs to be shielded. And basically we relied on other people to do our shopping because we couldn't get out of the house for quite a while. And I just realized how happy I was just by talking with my parents and just seeing them, and just talking with my colleagues at work, and just appreciating them, just appreciate like the little things. And obviously being on social media all the time, and because that was the thing that kind of kept us connected. I've seen how many people actually were affected by it, and I was just thinking by the people who were living alone. For example, I actually have a few colleagues who live alone, and they weren't allowed to go home. They were Polish, and they couldn't go home at that time, and they were living here with no one. It was really hard for them, and I just realized that we need to help each other. It doesn't matter what all this is about. I just think I could. Sometimes it just matters just to receive a message from someone, or just a simple "How are you doing? Are you alright?" or just to check up on people. I just realized, living non-stop with someone for 4 months, I just realized how many things I didn't know about him. That was a quite interesting because obviously when you live with someone, you kind of get to know each other in a few levels, but you don't spend day after day with each other. So, but this one was different, and I realized how little I knew actually, and that was a quite interesting.
Was it a happy revelation about these inner dimensions?
It was actually, yeah, it was, because I always kind of had the feeling that I'm not listened to, or I'm not appreciated enough, and I just realized that it's not true. Just because if we don't express our feelings, if he doesn't express his feelings the way I would like to, that doesn't mean he doesn't care. And I just realized it's actually completely different. You don't know what person thinks.
Were you struck by the contrast between Romanian culture and English culture?
Yes, it's so different, but in a good way. It was very hard at the beginning. I think I was actually quite depressed in like the first year, because I came here on my own. I didn't have anyone. I had to make friends. I had to start from scratch. I didn't know what I was gonna do with myself. For a few times I kind of actually wanted to go back as well. So that was quite hard as well. But everything is so different. Everything is different. just the way you express yourself. Just this. I don't know if I'm saying it right. The upper lip, stiff upper lip.
Stiff upper lip.
Yeah, you have this thing here, and that we don't. We are more volcanic and more expressive. If we have a problem with someone, we just say it to their face. You guys here are very, very. I'm not sure if I can find the word. Well, you don't express yourself as much as we do. You kind of keep it inside, and which comes sometimes across as being cold or being. I don't know, but it's not true. It's just this is how you are, and I just realized this is how you are. I do like your humor. It's absolutely brilliant. It took me a while to get used with it. I couldn't quite get it to start with. But I'm watching everything with subtitles just to improve my English and just see how every little thing is written, because our languages are very different. In Romanian, for example, you are reading a word exactly how it's written. For example, this one thing here, table not sanitized. I would read it table. That for us is completely different. It's completely different language.
Yeah.
So that was a thing that I had to get used with. I absolutely love Only Fools and Horses. That's my favorite show. I love your stand-up.
Del Boy.
Oh, Del Boy. Del Boy is absolutely brilliant. He always makes me laugh. And
I have a cousin who was like Del Boy.
Really?
Because although our background is in Pakistan, Iran, and so on, my cousin was only about a year when he came over from Pakistan. His name was Baba, and he was called Bob. And he was very much like Del Boy.
Really?
Very similar character.
But that's just a pleasure to be around, isn't it? Just someone who kind of lifts you up no matter how sad you are.
And Rodney.
Oh, Rodney is brilliant. And that suit that never fits him is absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and I really like your stand-up comedy here. It took me a while to get it, but now I really do like it.
You don't have anything like that in Romania.
We do, but our humor is very different. Our humor is more like Michael McIntyre, for example. He's more expressive. He just jumps on the scene and he dances. But most of your comedians aren't like that here. You're more like a subtle humor or something like that. So that's what I really like. I do like your food. I absolutely love your food. My favorite thing is an English scone with a bit of clotted cream. We don't have clotted cream, so this is absolutely brilliant here.
Yeah.
We don't have roasted dinners like you have here. I actually find that a bit much.
But going back to the difference between the volcanic, you mentioned you used the word volcanic about Romania. Don't you think that the stiff upper lip approach is actually more volcanic because there's a lot of suppression going on, and when you suppress emotions and feelings, they often come out as a volcano when they do come out.
You're right, actually, yeah, but most of the time it doesn't come out here, does it?
That's right. But whereas in Romania, it's like a pressure cooker that you're always letting off the steam, so there's no big explosion at the end.
No, because they're all big. They're all quite big. And I've noticed in my arguments with my partner, for example, because he is quite calm, but like you said, after he had enough, after a while, I don't know, a month or two after he had enough, he just explodes. But that doesn't happen very often. While I explode kind of all the time when I have a problem, I just need to say it. I can't keep it inside because otherwise I can't. I'm just gonna think about that thing all the time, so I can't move on.
Exactly. No, I think that's an important point. That if you don't express your emotions on a regular basis and in a controlled way, they will end up exploding in an uncontrolled way. And that's probably something that we all have to learn. I think, that we're all learning perhaps through this time of forced reflection, interiorization, and then reflecting upon, as you say, the arguments that you may have with your partner. You know, the lawyers are having a great time at the moment because so many couples are beginning divorce proceedings. They can't get on. It's quite a tragedy.
Because when you're forced somehow to live with someone like that and you have nowhere to go. Because I was actually thinking we had to make a pact at the beginning of this thing. I said, look, we're gonna live together for who knows how long. If we're gonna, where before we had like an explosive argument and one of us just left the house and just went somewhere to a friend or to his mom, or I went for a walk or something like that. Now it wasn't really possible, so we're gonna have to kind of keep it contained and just learn to live with each other, or just to learn to deal with it somehow, so we won't have to, because you didn't have anywhere to go, so you kind of had to.
And you couldn't even leave your house for a walk.
It was like the first month when the R number was really high and when there were a lot of deaths. On his letter it was actually written there, you are not allowed to. We strongly advise you not to leave the house. So because we were both very, very scared, we didn't leave the house at all. So, and his mom brought us the shopping, left them on the door. We had to wash them and bleach them, and so we were like extremely, extremely cautious there. After a while, I started to go and do the shopping, and he stayed in the house. We started going in a car for a few, wandering about, and now he is coming to a few shops, but very rarely, like once a month or something like that. He's still shielded until the end of August, and we shall see after that how it's gonna go. But now we're not as scared anymore as we were in March or in April. Now it's a bit, I don't know why that is, but maybe, to be really honest with you, I mean, I believe everything that the media says, and when, I don't know, 90% maybe, but in the same time, because I don't really know if in this case just social media is the best thing ever to have, because you read all these things every single day and everyone has their own opinion, and you kind of and I actually saw something the other day. Someone actually asked, he just asked in the public chat, do you guys actually know anyone who had the virus? And I actually thought about, no, I actually don't. I actually don't know anyone who knows anyone that had the virus. But at the same time, that doesn't mean it's not there. But maybe because of this reason, we're not as scared anymore. I don't know, it's just a weird thing. And maybe because here in the southwest, the things weren't that bad. I actually have someone who works at the hospital, and we kept kind of like asking him all the time, are there people there? And at some point, the maximum people admitted in the hospital here with coronavirus was 20. So there weren't a lot at all. So maybe that's why we're not so scared anymore. But at the beginning, that was quite terrible. It was, but we were lucky we had the balcony, so we kind of sat on the balcony and looked outside, and yeah, that was okay. But yeah, like you said, it's with all the divorces and stuff like that, I think you kind of realize when you're forced to live with someone if he's the one or she's the one, or because you don't really have anything to do, so you kind of have to focus on each other. Yeah, but now I started work. He works from home. He has the possibility to work from home, so that's alright. But I started work here last week, I think. And it's actually harder than I thought it's going to be. Because you have to be constantly aware of what you're doing. You have to... I have to actually control my hands, so I won't touch my face or touch my hair, because I've always kind of like touched it without realizing it. It's unconsciously, so I couldn't... So now I have to focus non-stop on my hands. Just be careful what you're doing, be careful what you're touching, wash your hands non-stop.
It's quite a task, isn't it? It's quite challenging, especially because you have to put on a smiling face, a happy demeanor. You're not really allowed to show that degree of nervousness. You've got to be in the hospitality.
Exactly, yeah.
You've got to continue as if it's normal. It's quite challenging.
It is, and it's very stressful. I actually noticed, I was comparing with how it was before. Well, before we had always a lot of guests here, like plenty of guests, always on a day-to-day basis, 80 to 90 guests. So it was really busy all the time, and not necessarily stressful, because
80 to 90 people in February and March.
We actually had a lot of people, yeah, because we had this deal for lunches, and and we had a lot of people from outside coming. Now we're not allowed to bring people from outside anymore. It's just for residents. So we've been really actually this year it was meant to be a promising year. Yeah, it was, because usually we were really quiet in January and February, but this year was like proper good. But obviously not anymore. Now we're not allowed to have as many people, and it's very stressful because everyone seems very calm, and everyone seems all our customers, very, very alright, and I'm not really sure how to take that. I suppose you have to move on, don't you? You have to, but it's hard, and I was actually noticing how tired I am now when I'm going home. I just want to sleep. I don't even want to think about anything. I just want to sleep.
Well, I'm sorry I've asked you to do this at the time when
no worries about that. No, that's actually my last shift for this week.
Well, actually, it wasn't I who asked. It was your manager who I asked. I said, do you have anyone on your staff who might be willing to have a conversation for my website? So it was he who asked you. He thought about it, and he thought, well, I'll ask Elena. So now, one of the things I am very interested in regarding Romania is that I've heard that in Romania, you still have many hermits who live in isolated situations all over the country. Individuals, members of the Orthodox Church, but they're not part of the church as such. They're like holy men, holy women who live in very isolated places, and ordinary Romanians can go and visit them and ask spiritual advice, just like in the old days, in traditional times.
Yeah, I was a bit confused. I didn't know what you were talking about to start with, but now I know. Like a spiritual guru, you mean?
Exactly.
We don't have as many anymore. There are a few. I have to admit, there are a few, but they're not seen as good as they were. Because obviously we kind of. It's a very weird thing, the religious part in Romania. Obviously the majority of us, we are Orthodox. There's a very small minority with Catholic people. We have a lot of, we call them Roms, but you know them here about Gypsies. Yeah, I'm not really sure what their religion is, but I'm not really sure. But these people you're talking about, I'm not sure they have as many people going to see them. I actually saw a few years ago one of them at the news that was living in complete isolation with his family in the mountains. And obviously people are going there sometimes and ask for like natural remedies and natural and advices, but I'm not sure they are so looked upon. I haven't heard many things about it. But we do have extreme cases as well. For example, we had a priest who basically lives in complete isolation with his wives. He's not even allowed to have so many wives. Through our religion, you're not even allowed. But he lives with his wives. He has about 10 wives, and he lives in the mountains, and he doesn't want any contact with the outside world.
Really?
So there are extreme cases like that. But
do you feel though that you have inherited a spiritual tradition that makes the general populace, the general population of Romania, the people, more receptive to religion than England, which is much more removed from its spiritual tradition? As you know, a very tiny proportion of people go to church compared to Romania.
I was actually very surprised when I found out this thing when I came here, because I'm not a very religious person myself, but I'm more of an agnostic, I would say. I believe just in case that something happens, and I have to admit that in the spirit I actually prayed. I have to admit, and I had some problems before with my partner's health, and we had a few financial problems, and I have to admit I did pray, just because I thought that was like my last resort. But in Romania we do. I remember when I was a kid, my nanny forced me to go to church, and she basically dragged me with her. Yeah, a lot of people in Romania are going to church, but mainly old people, I would say. There's like this younger generation now, like my parents are in their 50s and they don't go to church. Basically, it kind of started with them. They only went to church when they got married, when they baptized me and stuff like that. But my nanny, who's 80, she goes to church every single Sunday, every single big holiday. And if you're going to Romania in a church, the majority of people are going to be old ladies, like over 70, I would say. But you kind of inherit this thing. For example, when we walk on the street, yeah, and there's a church in front of us, we have to make the sign all the time. It's just like in
the sign of the cross.
Yes, you just have to make it. You just have to literally stop in front of the church and make the cross. That's like something that everyone does. Every time you meet the priest, you have to stop and have a conversation with him. Before every major holiday, the priest comes to your house and we pray together, and he basically goes through every village, every little house. So is this mutual respect, I would say. And I mean, you are allowed to have your own beliefs, obviously, but you kind of, everyone knows that the church is there. But they did have a lot of problems in the past few years as well, because Romania is a very corrupt country, and they were spending millions of euros on building like this massive church, like with the gold, the roof and stuff, something like that. And obviously the people got really angry. Why don't we invest in our hospitals and we invest in this ridiculous church? We don't need this church. And it's, yeah, so people, I think there are mixed feelings on this thing.
What I found interesting is that you said, I have to admit that at certain points in this crisis, I prayed as a last resort. You see, people are embarrassed about praying. They say, I have to admit. Instead of just saying that I was brought to a point in the crisis where I realized I can't really get through this without God's help. And that therefore I turned to God in my moment of need. And somehow that turning to God strengthened my faith and made me realize that I'm not an atheist. I am an agnostic. I'm not sure about it. Because you know, agnostic means one who does not know. Agnostic. Gnosis from the Greek, to know. So I don't know, but my heart, my mind might not know, but my heart knows that there is this ultimate reality, and that we've all come from that reality, and we're all returning to it when we die. So it's when we come close to death whether it's in terms of a crisis that's unresolvable or something. And it's at those points that people realize, actually, there is a deep dimension of faith in my heart. And this could be the beginning of a restoration of a spiritual life that one, from our point of view, as Muslims, we believe that every child is born according to the perfection of primordial human nature, fitra, and that as we go through our childhood and everything, we are conditioned by our environment. But deep down, there is this core of our humanity which is open to the reality of the divinity. That's the Muslim belief. So the idea of original sin is not quite there in Islam. There's something.
Is it no?
No. But Adam, yes, Adam fell from paradise, Adam and Eve. But unlike in the Christian narrative, in Islam, as soon as Adam fell, he repented. And God accepted his repentance and gave him revelation to guide him back to paradise.
All right.
That's the Islamic version of the Adamic story. So the Quran also says that there are people who, when they're on a ship and there's a storm raging and they're fearful, they turn to God, they pray, please save us. And when God saves them, they forget all about God and go back to their old way of life.
Well, that's a very good story for how we are in general as people, isn't it? Just because you are praying for God, but when you're like really happy and everything works alright, you don't really go into you don't really remember, do you? You just think, oh, it's But I don't think you wouldn't say on a day-to-day basis, you wouldn't go and meet your friends and say, oh, I prayed last night, wouldn't you? Because that sounds a bit embarrassing, but it's not actually, if you think about it. It's not, because it was so hard at the beginning when no one knew anything about this disease. And probably now we know a few things, but at the beginning it was really hard. We had no idea where is it from, it was just terrible, wasn't it? So it was just that I couldn't sleep at night. I actually found myself, I just couldn't sleep. I was just thinking, what if tomorrow I just wake up and that's it with us. We're all gonna die at some point. It was just terrible.
Have you heard of something called the Jesus prayer, the prayer of the heart? It's a formula that the monks, nuns, and mystics and hermits, spiritual gurus, as you mentioned earlier, that from the very beginning of Christianity, it would be a prayer that would be what today we would call meditation. And it simply says, Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy upon me, a sinner. And then it gets shorter and shorter, so that you repeat it and you're thinking about it all the time, not just when you want something from God, but just when you're eating, when you're walking, when you're working. It's constantly repeating, so that you're always in the presence of the divine reality that Jesus made present for us. And I say us because as Muslims we also believe that Jesus was a prophet, and that we believe he was born of a virgin. We believe many of the same principles. But this attitude to prayer is one that goes beyond simply making supplication, petition, please God help me, I need this, I need that. It's actually saying, almost like saying, thank you God for everything you've given. Not, please God, give me this that you haven't given me, but just saying, you've given me life, you've given me food, you've given me shelter.
Yeah.
And if you find yourself deprived of those things, then you say, please God help me, I don't have food, I don't have this. But instead of that attitude to prayer, the traditional core of mystical practice in Christianity, in Islam, in all the traditions, is to be consciously thinking about the source of our life, which is at the same time thinking about the end of our life, what happens when we die. So that the beginning and the end come together in the present moment, where we are giving ourselves in gratitude to God.
Yeah, that's a very good way of saying.
And your tradition is rich in that prayer.
Yeah, we
Romanian-
actually have a. I'm not sure how you call it here. We call it Our Father. This little prayer that you can
Can
repeat
you
it.
just recite it in Romanian for us? The Our Father in Romanian. Do you know it?
Yeah, yeah. Tatăl nostru.
Just slowly and clearly.
Ok. Tatăl nostru, care ne ești în ceruri, sfințească-se numele Tău, vie împărăția Ta, facă-se voia Ta, precum în cer, așa și pe pământ. Pâinea noastră, cea de toate zilele, dă-ne-o nouă astăzi și nu ne duce pe noi în ispite, ci ne izbăvește de cel viclean. Amin.
So it's the same as, I mean, in English it goes something like this. Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, for thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Yeah,
I think that's
it's basically the same thing. Yeah, it's just
I think I may have got one or two words wrong here, because I learned this, of course, at school. I went to a boarding school, and I didn't know anything about Islam, but I knew quite a lot about Christianity because we went to church every Sunday. We sang hymns in the church. And
So you're a Muslim, though.
I'm a Muslim, but my you know what a boarding school is? Where you
Yeah.
sleep.
When you sleep, yeah.
So from the age of 11 to 16, I knew nothing about my own religion, except that I mustn't eat pork, mustn't drink alcohol. That was
Yeah,
all
so
I
like
knew.
these rules, like
Just
this,
the
with,
rules.
yeah.
But Christianity was the only religion I ever properly knew, to the extent that you know it at that time.
So you found your other religion after that, or
Yes,
you have to look
had,
for it.
I had a conversion, a sort of born again Muslim experience when I was 25.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything about the religious side. I knew about the politics because I studied international relations, and so I studied Islam as a political factor rather than as a spiritual reality. And
Oh, very interesting, actually. Then are you happier now that you found the?
well, it's a long time ago. This is 1985, and yes, I feel as if I've found the path that I was meant to follow. I'm very
Yeah.
secure and happy in that path. But whether the more you advance in knowledge of your religion and the practice, the more you realize how far you are from true virtue. The Prophet Muhammad said that I was only sent to you as a prophet for the sake of making perfect the noble traits of good character. As if he's saying that the only purpose of religion is to have a good character. Everything else will fall into place if you improve your character, if you improve yourself.
But that's very true, though, isn't it?
It is.
And do you? Sorry for asking that. I actually never. I actually know a few Muslim people, and I've never. Do you have the concept of atheism in your religion?
Well, you see, atheism is saying there is no God.
Yeah.
I do not believe there is a God. And the basis of Islam is to say, La ilaha illallah. There is no God except God. So atheism, it's not as if you can sort of practice Islam for the sake of improving your character without this opening out into the higher reality. We see that the good traits of character, to be generous. One of the names of God is Al-Karim, which means the generous one. So when you become more generous, inevitably you are coming to reflect a reality that is found in all its perfection in God. So you can't say, I'm going to try and be more generous, be less miserly, but I don't really think there's a God out there. It's inconceivable.
No, you can't.
You become, your effort to become generous is deepened the more you see that the source of generosity is God in having created the universe, and that He gave, she gave. The reality of God is beyond masculine and feminine. But if you have to try and define God, you do it through what's called the Basmala, which is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It's the phrase that begins every chapter of the Quran. And when you begin to eat, I say every chapter, there's one that doesn't. Chapter 9 doesn't have it. And they speculate, why did this chapter not begin with it? But when you begin to eat, when you begin an important initiative, you always say, in the name of God, the lovingly compassionate, the lovingly merciful.
Yeah.
And the love element is very important because the two words, Rahman, Rahim, are both from the same root, which is Rahama. And that Rahim means the womb of the woman.
No.
So you're constantly invoking this maternal archetype when you say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And the Prophet gave an indication about this subtle relationship between ar-Rahman ar-Rahim and the love that the woman has for her newborn babe. Because he was with his companions at a very difficult moment, and they saw a woman running, crying, looking for her baby that she had lost in this chaotic situation. And she found the baby just in front of the Prophet and his companions. She lifted up her baby, she clutched it to her breast, and she fed it. She was so grateful, she was so joyous. And the Prophet said to his companions, do you see what Rahma, same root, what Rahma, this woman, the mother has for her baby? And he said, yes, O Messenger of God, this is a beautiful scene. And he said, God has more Rahma for you on the Day of Judgment than this mother has for her baby. So he used the love of the mother for her newborn babe as the best image to help us to begin to imagine and intuit the nature of God's love. So
yeah, because there's nothing bigger, isn't it?
There's nothing greater.
Yeah, definitely. That's quite a great story, actually. Yeah, and speaking of that, actually in lockdown, I had to. I never consider myself a person who would like to have kids. I mean, I always thought that maybe I'm too childish or I'm too selfish, or maybe not. At least not now. I'm too young for that. Maybe I'll leave it for the, I don't know, late 30s or something like that. I just realized that it's not actually accurate. I would actually really like to have a kid. I don't know where that came from. It's just kind of like, I had to kind of think about it. Wouldn't that be just amazing to have someone that looks like you and is like a little mini version of you? Or I don't know. It's just kind of like made me think. I didn't even spoke to my partner about that, but I'm kind of waiting for the right moment because we're not married yet. So I'm kind of like,
good for you.
I'm waiting for the right moment.
That's very, very good. And I think he would be in complete agreement. This, there's an English saying, with every cloud, there is a silver lining. The cloud may be dark and it may be threatening, but there's a silver lining around it. And one sees that with this coronavirus cloud, there is a silver lining. People are turning to love and to compassion, as you said earlier at the beginning, how much we need each other.
Exactly,
how impossible it is to live in isolation. It's so unnatural.
It's terrible.
Cutting off from other people is cutting yourself off from a deep part of yourself. And that we're only ourselves in relationships with other people.
Exactly, yeah. You just cannot live on your own, can you? Because I remember when we've been, after a month and a half, we've been for a little drive. That was the first time we came up. I swear it was so gorgeous. The trees were amazing, the flowers were amazing, the little birds were, everything was absolutely amazing. I could not believe it. It was just, and we started to just go around Devon. I don't know, have you ever been in Devon, like properly before?
A few times.
if you just walk on the moors, which I've been here for 4 years, and I never had the patience or just the curious. I mean, I've been in like the main places, yeah, but I've never walked on the moors or something like that. Everything is amazing here. It was absolutely gorgeous, and I've never seen. I just discovered things that I've never seen before, which it just made me think, why did I never had the curiosity? Just because I knew it was there, I'm just gonna go and do it at some point in my life. I just realized that you don't have to wait for the things you want. You just, if you really want to see something, or you really want to do something, or I don't know, eat something, just do it now, because you never know.
Particularly regarding virgin nature.
Exactly, yeah. Because we're not realizing how lucky we are, is it?
Yeah, just give us a summing up of what advice would you give to people who are listening and who might be able to benefit from the insights you have got from these last 4 months?
Ah,
If something comes to your mind, if not, don't worry.
well, I would say try to be. But I'm just gonna talk to myself.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna try to give a few advices to myself. Try to take every day as it is. Be happy. Be patient. Just listen to yourself. Try to kind of seize the day and just go for it. Whatever you want. Don't just wait for something good to come up or for like a little door to open. Just follow your dreams, and if you're not happy, get out of that situation and look for something else, because that's what life is, just a continuous fight. Continuous.
No, I'm interested in that. Elaborate a little
A fight with yourself, I would say. Fight with yourself, because there are so many people who kind of. I would give here the example of my parents. For example, my parents haven't been happy for ages, because I remember when I was a kid, they always used to be really unhappy, and they always had these little bickerings about each other, and they stayed because they thought that's the normal thing to do. And I would actually say just try to kind of seize the moment, and if you're not happy, look for something better. Just know your worth, and just look for something better and fight for yourself.
Thank you very much, Elena.
No problem.
Much appreciated.